screen of our
Yeah.
page.
So the one awkward part, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I'll present it into my screen as full screen so everybody can see it really nicely, but that just means that I can't see any of you on the Google Meet. So just forgive me for that. So it's gonna be like me talking to my computer, like I'm talking to myself. So I'll present this.
Megan, if a question comes up, Scott or I can be like an MC. How about that?
Oh, that will work perfectly.
Yeah.
Great. So we're going to get started because we only have an hour, and I want to make sure we use our time really, really well because this is a really great conversation, and I'm sure lots of people are going to have lots of questions. So our presentation is how to talk to students about race, and that includes other equity conversations like LGBTQ or anything like that, but specifically race is just where we're going to focus. But keep in mind that you can use this these tools and these methods for like any of those conversations around any kind of equity conversation that you might have to have. So I just want to take a second to go over norms. So talking about racism and equity can be really, really scary. Especially if you're not used to it or it's very uncomfortable for you. So just keep in mind that you're going to be uncomfortable. I even sometimes am still uncomfortable having conversations like this. So you're going to be uncomfortable, but it's okay. Remembering that when you're uncomfortable is when you're actually learning and where growth happens. Please feel free to ask your questions, even if you think it might be offensive or awkward or anything like that. Please, please, please ask your questions because you can't learn if you don't ask. And this is a safe space to ask questions if you have them. And then just be open. Be mindful that everybody's experience is a little bit different, and just treat people in a respectful way. That's all I'm asking. So we are going to start with a little temperature check. And remember, I put the link to this slideshow in the chat, so you can click on where it says "click me," and that's why it drops down my screen. So it should be showing you this Jamboard.
It does, Megan.
I will add the link again. Yes, I know that if you just came, if you came after I posted the link. Yeah, it's so what you're gonna do is, this is our first little just question, and it's anonymous. I can't really see who does what, so don't worry. How comfortable do you feel discussing race and racism with adults? So grab one of those blue dots and you can just drag it onto this temperature line where you feel your comfort level lies. And so one end is so comfortable I'm in my PJs, and the other end is I would rather teach naked. Excuse me, I'm recovering from a head cold. Cool, we have a spectrum. That's always nice.
Just to let you know, I tried to click it, but it says there are too many people in it and it won't let me get in.
Oh, bummer.
Just wanted to let you know so you didn't.
Yeah, I can't get in either.
Okay, so there's two Jamboard slides. So why don't there's the first page and the second page. The first page is how comfortable you feel discussing race and racism with adults, and the second page is the same question but with students. So if you're in the Jamboard, quickly answer and then hop out, and then maybe some people can hop back in. I didn't know there was a limit of 50 in a Jamboard. Thank you, Corey. So there are two questions on page 1 and page 2. So just go quick and answer those for me, and then you can pop back out just so that other people can get in. And if you can't get in, you can't get in. It's not like the end of the world. And if I need to make more dots, you can just hit Control-C and then Control-V, and another dot will appear so that you can move for yourself. Okay, so some people it looks like people are feel a little more comfortable talking with other adults. All right. And this is just a nice way for the presenters to kind of see where we're at. and just also just a nice way for you to see anonymously where everybody else in the group is at without having to like throw yourself out there in a really scary way. So that's really exciting that there are people who are quite comfortable talking about race and racism with other adults. And I even have just a fair amount of people who are comfortable doing it with students too. So, good. I'm back to my temperature check one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to click to the next slide and Scott is going to take it away.
All right, thanks, Megan. So just a little bit of context for everyone. There's a group of us who have been meeting. Some of us started shortly after the murder of George Floyd back in the spring, and then continued through the summer, and then it kind of shifted into high gear in terms of numbers of people who have been meeting on a bi-monthly basis since the beginning of the school year, forming an equity committee with the intention of bringing these issues to the forefront and knowing that change needs to happen both locally and nationally. So we're going to mostly deal with how to talk about those conversations, but I think it's probably important to spend a little bit of time wondering, questioning why. You know, what compels us to have these conversations, especially in a district where we are predominantly a white teaching faculty and a white student body. You know, what compels us to do so? So this slide attempts to address that. Some of these things may be obvious. I'm going to read this to you. I know you can read, it's small, but I think it probably has more resonance if you hear me as you read along. Brian Stevenson, if you don't know, is the author of Just Mercy. There was a film made about his work down primarily in the South and in Alabama, working with death row inmates, helping to overturn wrongful convictions. He started the Equal Justice Alliance and was spearheaded the Legacy Museum that is now down in Montgomery, Alabama. But he says this. He says, you can be very progressive, which I'm sure some of us can identify with. You can be very educated. Hopefully most of us can identify with that. And you can still be complicit in the kind of microaggressions, which may be something that we need to define, that take place when you look at people through the lens of racial difference. So we all have a lot to learn. We all have a lot to learn. I don't think that we should expect to make progress on these issues without bumping into one another, without making mistakes. We just have to have, and here, this is key, the humility and the patience and the courage to work through that. I'm going to just say that again, humility, patience, and courage to work through that. What I don't think we should do is just retreat because we don't know exactly where all the landmines are. And I think that's a human tendency, is to not want to go where the landmines are. Of course, who wants to be blown up? Who wants to experience that kind of trauma, that kind of discomfort? So why talk about race and equity in the classroom? You can see the ADL refers to the Anti-Defamation League. That's where these come from, these first few. Race is part of our public conversation and integrated into so many aspects of our world. So why, in a public school system, would we not be having those hard conversations? Not talking about race or choosing the colorblind ideology, I don't see race, actually works to perpetuate racism. The intention may be pure, but the impact is problematic. Talking about issues around race likely fosters greater empathy. I think most of us believe in that. Discussions encourage students to understand and to analyze, which are those critical thinking skills that are embedded in our standards, issues of power and privilege as they relate to racism. Doing so encourages movement toward getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Megan talked about that early on, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, which can extend into all aspects of life. Teaching children from a young age how to understand disparate perspectives and experiences, I added that, can be begin to repair today's widespread divisions. That's out of Harvard. And this last one out of Ed Justice. To advance solutions, we need to address real problems. As teachers, we have those opportunities for teachable moments or opportunities to constructively and productively address race. Those opportunities are there. Why don't we seize them? And that's it for me.
Thanks. All right. So here's where we're going to start. I have a couple questions with a little like Jamboard where you can place a response and have some discussion. We'll have like a little bit of discussion, and then towards the end, I have an article and some breakout groups that I'm going to place you guys in. So the first question that kind of just want you to take a second to reflect on is what are some reasons that you, and if you don't feel like you have any reasons, think about any teacher, that you might be fearful about having these conversations about race and equity in the classroom. And if you click where it says click me to answer, it'll pop you to another Jamboard. I know, you're so excited, Jamboards. And I'm just gonna kind of keep an eye as we go along and read through, and I encourage you to read through what others are writing. And we're gonna maybe try and assuage some of these fears a little bit right now. Oh man, not knowing where to start. Well, congratulations. Though, if you don't know where to start and you showed up to this, that's your first step. You found some place to start. So nice job with that. This is where you start. You start by learning. You start by asking somebody else for help. All right, I'm gonna talk about being fearful and not having the right answers, saying the wrong thing and not having the right answers. So we're gonna dive into that for a second. So just like color blindness perpetuates racism because it takes away people, like parts of who people are. Not saying anything is another kind of compliance towards racism. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It is okay to not feel like you have the answers. It is not okay to stay silent. Your silence is compliance. Your silence is saying that the systems that are in place in this country that are racist are okay with you and you're going to let them continue. So it is scary. And I have, just so you all know who are here, I've been doing this work since I was about 18 years old, working with Farm and Wilderness Foundation, which is a summer camp organization that I've been with. And so I've been doing this work, I'd have to do math in my head, 16, 17 years now. So I have a different comfort level than somebody just starting off. But I will tell you, when I started this as an 18-year-old kid, and they were like, you're gonna have these conversations, we're gonna practice them, we're gonna talk about them, and I'm like, you're gonna make me do what with 5-year-olds? I'm sorry, what? It's scary. But the great place to start is right here. Do some research, do some reading, and jump in and try it. Okay. The other thing, along with being afraid of saying the wrong thing and being that you don't have the answers, you don't have to have all the answers. You do not have to have all the answers. It's actually a really amazing thing. I'm sure lots of you have admitted being wrong in front of your students before. And it is this crazy, powerful thing to admit that you're not like invincible in front of your students, and that's okay, because then they learn that it's okay to not know, and they learn that it's okay to ask those questions even when they're unsure. And I would say just always approach with kindness and understanding when it comes to this stuff, and because they might not know that what they're saying isn't the right way or isn't in the thing. I had a student. What, Melissa?
I'm sorry. I had a student that came in that I had to go over and help. I don't know how to get to the thing where people are bringing in their comments or questions. I just don't know how to get there. Sorry.
If you have if you have the presentation open, it's the first one.
Okay.
And Megan, I was gonna just chime in that as we have these conversations, which can be challenging, and what one of the foci of one of our foci of this conversation is that we've got 79 people on this call, and that there are folks within GRCSU that can be there to dipstick with, to be able to have these conversations with. We've got a wonderful equity group that Megan and Scott spoke about that's been meeting, every other week roughly for all year, and over the summer on our own time. And this is important work. And I think that having these conversations and just starting with this is going to make us better educators, better people. So thank you for joining us as we go through these challenging conversations today. So
Yeah.
This is awesome. I love this Jamboard.
Yeah. So we are going to give you some more like tangible tips and tricks later on. So right now, I'm not going to address those kinds of things. I will say that there's a couple of these that I do want to address right now. One person's talking about working with younger kids and worrying about not saying the right thing and ruining that for them. I can tell you right now that little kids know that there is a difference. They see that each other, and they see that people are different. You're not ruining it for them. They've noticed. I believe there's research that as young as 3 years old, kids can notice that there is a difference. And again, yeah, maybe you don't want to pop that 6-year-old's bubble, but the problem is then if no one ever says anything, if no one ever teaches them that this exists, it's this hidden system that our country has in place, that if nobody ever teaches them that it's there, if they're white specifically, I'm specifically talking about white, if nobody ever teaches them that it's there, then they're going to get that colorblind attitude, which just perpetuates the racist system. And then I believe somebody just asked, what about the children of color? Yeah, so that's also really important. I mean, hopefully children of color have parents or somebody in their life who looks like them and can help these conversations along with them. If not, that's a whole nother thing. But putting students of color on the spot. Yes. Okay. So here is my example for this. I did an entire unit at the beginning of the year with all of my kids, pre-K to 6 at Proctor Elementary and pre-K to 4 at West Rutland, where we looked at an African-American artist and Maya Angelou as a poet and did a project around that. And we had a conversation about race. I had it all the way up. I didn't do the conversation with race with the preschoolers so much, but we did it all the way up. A great way about if you're worried about putting your kids of color on the spot is I told the kids that questions had to be directed towards me as the teacher, and then I could then control. So if they asked me the question, I could then control if I open the question up to the group as a whole, or if I only answer the question as the teacher. And that way, nobody turned to another kid in the room and put those kids of color on the spot. I actually did have a kid turn to another kid. She had never heard, this was new for her. She was a 3rd grader. She turned to the only person of color in the classroom who was her friend and was like, does this happen to my friend? And I directed it back away from the little girl of color. And I just sent a message home to that little girl's mom at the end of class. And I was just like, look, this is what we were talking about. This is what happened. The mom was awesome. She was like, I hear you. It's really hard to be different. I'll check in with my kiddo when she gets home. But I also had this beautiful moment that happened where the only girl of color in the class then felt comfortable to come and talk to me. Her little face lit up because I don't know if this is a fact. I don't think we have any people of color on our teaching staff in the district. I'm not 100% sure, but for the most part, we're all white. So those little kids of color have nobody who they look at in a position of power who looks like them. And this little girl's face changed when we started having this conversation about race, which I will tell you was terrifying for me to open up this conversation. But this little girl's face changed, and she saw an adult who maybe didn't look like her, but somebody she now knows she can trust and she can talk to as a little girl of color. So like, you're also not putting yourself out there and opening yourself up for those kids to have those moments with you. And I did see,
Megan, can I interject really quick?
of course, Scott.
Yeah, I've just saw a number of the notes that were talking about people expressing concerns that they're just not feeling well educated, that they don't know,
Yeah.
which I want to honor and acknowledge. And yes, it requires some educating, it requires some readings, but I also want to give props to our coaches, district coaches who have put together some really good modules under the equity module. Where it's at least a starting point. If I think you can go pretty deep into that. So that for that last hour of the day, if you're inspired after this session, you might want to go into that equity module and start poking around and start educating yourself a little bit more, because it does take that kind of confidence. You do need to have some understanding in order to bring it into the classroom.
Yeah. I was going to say that too as well. Thank you very much, Scott. There's some excellent equity modules on the coach's website. So after this, please, if you're curious or you want to keep going, dive into that. There's a lot of resources there.
Megan, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
I'm the one that's terrified of teaching my 6 and 7-year-olds the wrong thing, because I have the mixed class. And I wanted to ask you, did you talk to the parents of students before you did this unit, or did you just bring it on?
Nope. Because if you think about it, would you talk to the students about the parents about any of your other units?
No, I just think I know I'm one of those people that I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. And I want to balance and make sure all the kids feel like they're cared for. But as Scott said, I feel like I need more information and I need some more education before I feel like I can fully come out and do something. Yes, I talk to the kids about we're all important and but you're right, there are some things that are different between, some of my kids in my class and some of the others. And there's other things too, social economics and everything too. So just trying to make sure you put all the pieces together in the right place,
Yeah. No, it's scary. And it's okay to come back and say that you made a mistake. That's the biggest thing. And your kids were awesome. They had great conversation about how that it isn't fair that people are treated differently just because their skin color is different. And we had a great conversation in that and she has a first grade class, for those of you who don't know. And that first grade class had some really amazing points that they brought up. So yeah, it's scary. But take that step and educate yourself. We have lots and lots and lots and lots of resources. The coaches have them. I'll have some at the end of this. I have some great website resources for you. You can also always feel free to email me if you have any concerns or you want to set something up or you want to do a unit. Send me an email. I'm happy to help anybody who needs help doing any of this work. So
Megan, we had a number of hands come up.
Oh gosh, I can't see them.
Yeah, and that's why I just wanted to bring it up, and I can't remember who, but there were several that popped up. So.
Yes, Marissa.
This is Marisa. I work at Relton Town. I teach a human rights unit and weave that into social studies and ELA, so do reading and writing, and we do a really deep dive into a lot of equity. And in preparation for that, my first year, I sat down with admin and wrote a letter home saying, we're going to talk about tough topics. I think our 10-year-olds are ready to discuss those things at a age-appropriate level. The conversations in the classroom, I'm hoping, will lead to further conversations at home. Here are some of the books we're going to be reading. Here are some of the organizations we're going to be learning about. If you have any questions, please let me know. And from that, I haven't gotten much pushback at all. In fact, this year I've gotten no pushback and a few parents reaching out saying, thank you so much for having this. And also one who has a child with disabilities said, hey, can we include people with disabilities in this human rights unit? And I just thought that was so cool that they're like, oh, there's this really great opportunity. We can talk about equity. And here's my kid who doesn't often see their inequities talked about in class or in school. So I think, Erin, it would be okay if you feel uncomfortable, talk to your admin, like talk about sending a letter home. I think that's where our admin team could do a lot in being vocal about, hey, this is what it's okay, we're gonna talk about this stuff at school. So I think like a statement at the admin level might go a long way so that we're all kind of free to talk about it in our classrooms without having to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah. And I will say when I did this unit, I did give my admin a heads up that it was happening just in case. And I don't believe in either school, I had 0 parents contact me at all. I didn't have negative or so yeah, it does feel scary, but our admin is backing us up. Our district is working on adopting an equity policy. And also very soon the state of Vermont is putting down actual equity proficiencies. So soon it won't even be an option, and you can use that to fall back on and be like, look, this is from the state of Vermont. Like, you can be upset about it, but it's not, and you don't have to go in depth with 6-year-olds about how like people of color historically are treated. Like, you don't have to go in depth about it. You can just you alter it to your age level, obviously. Like, older 10-year-olds are going to be able to have a more in-depth conversation about like some stuff, whereas like 5-year-olds, frame it as like historically in the past, people have been treated poorly because they look different from other people. It's so, obviously you're going to have to tweak it to what's appropriate for each kid level. There are fabulous books out there. There's fabulous books from little all the way up. Excellent book resources if you do a little research. I do want to pop along because I knew this was going to happen. We're not going to have enough time.
Yeah, Megan, we had a number of questions still pop up, and I'm not sure if we're going to get to all of them. I know we've got an ambitious time frame here, so.
If you have a question and I don't answer, you know what? I will do that. I will look through after this and I will send you an email. I'm going to say that. So, I'm going to go to the next slide, which is the next question. This is going to be quick. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just take a second and evaluate yourself. What can you do for yourself to alleviate some of that fear? And there is a Jamboard if you would like to write it. It's just, and I'm not going to go through these. I just want you to take a second to reflect on that and answer that for yourself. What can you do for yourself? Right? As all on your own, how can you alleviate some of that fear? Yeah, I mean, education. And the equity and education group, which is the group that meets every other week. We're more than happy if anybody wants to join. You can pop me an email and tell me. And also, we're going to keep trying to offer stuff like this at in-services. So just note that that's something. Conversation with people you trust. Great. Books, read books. Watch documentaries. There's awesome documentaries on Netflix about this. Yeah. All right, I am going to pop on to the next one so we can get to the actual discussion. So the last question I have for you is to kind of collect a little information to pass along to those who are higher up than us. What do you need from others? Thinking about school leaders and administration, what do you need from them to alleviate this fear? And so if you just click to that Jamboard, if you could, again, this will be anonymous, if you could just throw in what you need from the higher ups in our district to feel more confident and more comfortable, and then I can take this information and I can actually pass it along in an anonymous way so that maybe we can start to identify and target some of that stuff. Grade level books, excellent. Our equity group is in the process of putting together a list of books. One of our members is working on coming with a list of books that deal with diversity and all that. So that's coming soon, hopefully. Some of the resources that I'm going to give you at the end of today have, they actually have free lessons that you can go and pick grade level and subject matter, and it'll give you a lesson to start tackling this stuff. Excuse me. All right, I am going to pop along. Please keep adding things to that Jamboard so that I can gather that information and pass that along. And I want us to get to like the meat of this conversation, hopefully, which will be this, which is like the actual helpful tools. So this is going to get a little complicated, but I think we're going to be able to do it. So the link that you see on this page is a link to an article. You're going to go to the article and you're going to read it. There's some reflection questions available for you to kind of think about as you read the article. At the top of this slide, you'll see that it says elementary, middle school, and high school. Each one of these is a link to a separate Google Meet. So you're going to click on your grade level chunk and go into a smaller group with that grade level chunk. I'll be going with elementary, Scott will be going with high school, and Jay will be going with middle school. We're going to break out into separate little Google Meets for a little while to read this and have a conversation. And then we're just going to pop back in all together to just do a quick closing. So what time is it?
Megan, are you suggesting that people first read the article and then go to these breakout meets?
You can pop into the meets and read the articles in the new meeting. So just don't lose. Corey, can you copy and paste the link to this meeting so people can have the link to come back to this one at the end? So does that make sense?
In the agenda. Do you want me to put it on the slide for you? Is that what you want me to do?
Oh, that would be really helpful. Can you pop it on the slide for me?
Yep.
And Megan, what time do we want to come back together as a
That's what I think we'll just need like a 10-minute wrap up because we're going to do discussions in the smaller groups, not as a large group altogether. But I do want a couple minutes to wrap up at the very end. So let's say we'll come back at 1:50. How's that sound?
I'm a little bit concerned about just 15 minutes to do the reading and then have it.
55?
That would be my suggestion.
Okay, 55. So you're going to click on your grade level, go to that Google Meet. At 1:55, we'll come back to the big meet together to just do a quick little reflection wrap up. I will stay in this one for a second just in case anybody needs a little bit of help or is confused. And then I will pop out when everybody's popped out into the little individual ones. All right, so just to make sure my technology is working, I can't see you, so somebody answer verbally. Is on the screen questions, thoughts, and concerns is what you see?
Yes.
Great. So I do want you to take time to do a reflection as any good teacher would. So if you go to the Click Me, it's going to bring you to a Jamboard. The reflections, Rosebud Thorn. And this is one of my favorite reflections. You can use it for almost everything. So a rose is something that you learned, you think went well, you feel good about. A bud is something that you're still contemplating or you need more information or you're looking forward to trying it. And a thorn is something that like didn't sit well or feels icky still or something that's still standing in your way. And so just kind of take a second to reflect. Because reflection obviously is always important. And then the last thing I just wanted to show you is I talked about some resources and I want to make sure you get them. So while you're reflecting, there's these 3 great websites. Learningforjustice.org. It's formerly called teachingtolerance.org. So some of you might have heard of it before. This one I've spent the most time on. It has articles, professional development, videos, lesson plans. It has so much. You can design your own professional development on this website around equity. It's an excellent website, and I'm pretty sure they don't charge you for anything on it. Okay, so go, like, please go there. You can find articles on everything. Teaching for Change was a website I found recently. It's really great. And then facinghistory.org is also a website. That Facing History is a little bit more of like the historical history of some of this stuff. The historical history. Listen to me saying that like that made any logical sense. And then I told my group, but the article that you read is just a snippet from a larger article that Learning for Justice actually put out, and the link right here is actually the link to the full PDF article. It's about 50 pages, but it is excellent. It's like a step-by-step of how you have this and how you start these conversations, and it was awesome. And then the resources at the bottom, resources 1 and 2, our equity and education group has been doing a lot of like reflecting and thinking about what would be most helpful for teachers. These are 2 resources that we've found that are kind of like checklists where you can like go through and it like you kind of answer the question, and it asks you things like you know, kind of asks you questions about like where you are in this process, and like even down to like, you know, what kinds of posters are on your wall in your classrooms and what kind of books you have in your library. And there's some really nice resources for just like some self-evaluation. And then you can use that to like kind of see where you need to go as the next step in this process. So those are some excellent resources, and I'm going to ask Corey on the spot right now if maybe those websites can get added to the equity modules. They can. Corey's like, yeah. So please use those resources. I know it's 2. Please do the reflection. It's helpful for you and helpful for me. We can kind of see where to go next with like the next in-service of what to offer for you all. I will stay on this meeting. If more people want to have questions or want to talk with me, I will stay on this meeting for a little while for those of you who want to have a conversation or want some help with anything or anything like that. So, but if you don't need me and you don't want to stay, thank you so much for showing up. Showing up is the first step. Thank you for being willing to even contemplate having these conversations. You all are awesome. I'm sure you're amazing teachers. Keep up the good work. And I will send out those resources to everybody. And like I said, I'll stay on if anybody wants to talk to me or have any type of conversation after. And I'm sure Corey will stop recording the